However, later, maybe some of the reasons might lie on others rather than myself. Apart from that, I also did some research on my opponents, and I had to leave a good impression on the referees. I remember in 1998, during the Winter Olympic Games, before the game, me and Chen Lu would not put on makeups. However, during the games, we put on thick makeups because we are entering into the competition phase. We have to leave a good impression to the referees. Also, as soon as we meet a referee, we will be very nice and kind. Because a referee has a very large right, and sometimes they will observe each athlete, and we need to pay attention to the small details, because there was this time I noticed that during the crucial period of Winter Olympic Games, one athlete did not have the usual small gestures. And if you try not, and one should try not to use these small gestures or actions during the game. Also, the referee would be very strict, especially over some controversial actions. I remember during the World Championships in Montreal in 2003, the whole game is live streaming to the network. That means that the audience can see the referees judge immediately. If the referee did some controversial judge, how can the audience react? For example, in some project, if there is some controversial judge, then you can argue over the judge. If your argument was not passed, then you can go over other international lottery. There is a series of process that you can do. Most importantly, you should provide as much evidence as possible. I also believe the referee will be more cautious. I'm also more focused to what you just said. When I cannot influence others, what I can do is to try to focus on myself. If we only try to focus on ourselves, how can we improve ourselves? I'll give you a very simple example. For example, in the relay game, when I failed, I was very upset because previously I did a very good job. I was judged to disobey the rule over the last 2 rounds. If I could have controlled these small actions or gestures, then at least I could have already won a silver medal. In 4 years, we are about to have the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic Games. And I believe that at least China will have our own conclusion and work report and try to learn from the past. We will try to conclude from all aspects and try to provide a very good environment and better environment that will be fair and just to all athletes. And we will also draw conclusions from the past of each athlete. From my experience, at the beginning, all athletes might not be able to face his or her own mistakes. However, I remember for me myself, during the 98 Winter Olympic Games, I tried to avoid the fact for two weeks. And if I was not judged of disobey, then I could at least won the silver medal. That's why I tried to avoid the fact. And when I was trying to move forward, I realized that I still have some space to improve. At that time, when I realized this fact, I forget my misery and try to move forward, and I was even very looking forward to the next match. It was because that my skill was not good enough. That's why I very expected the next match. If you did an in-depth analysis on each athlete as a participator of the game, do you think that there is also one reason that we don't have the right of say during the game? Yes, that is also a very hot topic. When I firstly joined the ISU Council, I did not even speak English. And over my past path, I realized that if you only think about the right of say, then you will only think about yourself. And in that organization, each representatives from each nation will have the right to vote. So when you enter an international organization, you would need to have a global vision and try to push over the development of these sports or this career and make a global contribution. That's a different vision from just trying to fight for your right of say. If you only think about your own nation, then you will meet different obstacles or various obstacles at all times. Because usually, each representative will not only think about their own nations, but also think about the whole globe. That's why I think that first of all, you will need to reach this common sense. And also, you need to learn about how the international organization work. For example, I am in ISU Council, and then there is ISU Technological Council, and they are more focused on the technical aspect. For us, our council is more focused on the policies. For example, how to set up the rules of world championships and also the new direction for the World Cup and new rules for the Youth Winter Olympic Games, etc. And what kind of selection match should we do during the regional areas? As a result, currently we have Chinese people participating in all levels of international organizations. When we talk about the right of say, what should we think about? I think participation comes first, rather than just about when you have encountered some obstacles, then you go to fight with each other, or just write emails or ask for explanations. I remember the other time I wrote an email and I got an answer that as council member of an international organization, you cannot interfere with the result. Also, the ISU will have explanations to some controversial referees judge. Because at the beginning, when they noticed that I have a very strong reaction over the controversial judge, they worried that I might go interfere with the result or the judge, although my interference might not be that effective. However, this gesture or this action might get questioned from the public because the right of each council member is limited. What do you mean? When you wrote an email to the ISU and asked for an explanation, do you think you were wrong? No, I don't think I was wrong. I had the right to ask for an explanation. And what I was trying to ask was just to urge them to give an explanation to the public. I would not make any comments on the judge. What I really was asking for was the explanations from the ISU, because the audience came to watch the match with passion. If the ISU could not provide a fair explanation to the judge of the referees, then it might discourage the audience. That's why in the next round, ISU urged and gave an explanation over the judging system and regulations or rules. At that time, the reason why we were selected as the hosting city of 2020 Winter Olympic Games was because you did a very touching speech, and that played a very important role. And you said that we aim to let 300 million people to be participating in Winter Games. From my perspective, some of my explanations were actually different from my original thought. During our application process, the reason why we did not try to put the hosting city in the northeast area was because that the total population in that area it's around 300 million. The reason why I was still very confident that the hosting city is Beijing is because that in the area during the Winter Olympic Games, Beijing city will not only be the city or area that has impact on the whole nation. Also, we will establish a business or commercial oriented game. And the investment is not just from the country, but also from the business circle. You also mentioned that in this project, we need to get the business sector included, to encourage 300 million people participating in the Winter Games. How can we achieve this object? Apart from including those who has the ability of Winter Games, we also need to think about that who has the passion for the Winter Games. I remember that when I was a kid, in my area, almost all of the kids will join the Winter Games. At that time, we did not have a lot of academic burden, and every day, every kid got up in the morning. Then the kids will gather around in the sports field, and every morning we will have a very big water bucket to make ice of the field, to make a man-made rink. And we have these skating shoes and this skating knife, and put that skating knife on our shoes, and then we would go skating. So even you use a very simple tool or facilities to go skating, it still counts. Some of us love skating, and I remember one of my friends who would just get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then go skating, and also encourage the students to go skating as well. Now with the economic development, the teacher's responsibility is even huge. What if the students got injured or catch a cold? And now we have more and more opportunities to experience skating outside. Sometimes the parents might be too worried or give too much protection to the kids. That also will pose some limitations to the development of some snow sports or ice sports. Yeah, I agree that as the time goes by, kids are more and more important, and the parents will give more protections to the kids. How can we give those kids professional service and professional training, and also professional management is a question. As a parent, if I were to encourage my kid to go skating, and I would worry about the professional protection and training. But what do you mean specifically? For example, for the kids, if he or she wants to go skating, that's his or her own nature. However, how can we convince the parents to be able to let the kid to go skating and let them understand that we are a professional training, we have professional training facility, and we will give enough protection of the kids. And also there is another aspect that during the training process, how can you, for those fans or enthusiasts of skating, during the sports, they will advance and evolve by the time. However, if they did not receive enough professional support and not professional equipment, then for the first day they might have a very bad experience, and then they might just quit. That would be such a shame. As a result, if you want to encourage more and more kids or people go skating or go for winter sports, then you will have to establish a very professional series of training. Also, from the technology wise, it should also be very professional. How can you be professional? Coach plays a very important role. Coach also will have a responsibility to the students. The coach's passion can have a great influence on the students. I remember that some of the coach, my coach, when I was a kid, was definitely not a very professional skater. However, he did have the passion, and he showed us the game, the game of the videos. And I got encouraged immediately. Then I tried to imitate the athletes in the video. Now there are more and more. We have more access to those videos of the games. However, when you were a kid and you were able to just get up very early and try to make ice rink yourself, that was very encouraging. However, some of the kids might not be able to have the facility or have access to make the ice rink. How can we do? Yes, I also agree that the investment to the facilities is very important. In some remote areas, not to mention the ice rink facilities, even sports facilities are very rare. I know that currently some of the land properties can be transferred to sports lands or sports facilities. However, during the implementation phase, it was very difficult and a lot of obstacles were encountered. Because in some big cities, land are very scarce resource, and it's very difficult to find the space to make the sports facilities. I also have a question. During 2022, before the four years of 2022 Winter Olympic Games, would you like to go into the preparation work of the Olympic Games, or you would like to encourage more and more people in China to participate in Winter Games? Both two missions are very difficult. The sports spirit is just like this. The more difficult, the more challenging, the more passionate we get. I think both missions are very difficult, especially for the competition sports. For the high-level competitions, it's more not only challenging for the athletes, it is also very challenging for the preparation period, and also a lot other aspects, especially for winter sports. The training facilities, it's not enough. Not to mention for the general public, the training facilities for the professional athletes are very scarce as well. Some of us have to invite overseas training coach, and we even don't have training facilities for some water sports. Sometimes it is not. We don't even have enough time to build the training facilities for the international games. Now the government is giving strong support in building these facilities and try to build that facilities as soon as possible, so that to give us enough support for our preparation. Now we do face with some obstacles. Since recently sports it's a very heated discussed topic, we can include people from the business sectors to play a role. For example, we can utilize the influence of some international games, because when an international game is completed, a lot of people from the business sectors will try to build up or construct new facilities for sports. For this mission, we really need to include people from the government, from the business sector, and also from the public. And also, a lot of resources can be included. However, for competition sports, it is more difficult. I think both are very difficult because they are further from the general public. Also, you mentioned that we don't even have the training facility for some 2022 Winter Olympic Games events. I also have a question. When you were a kid, you just entered this skating world by passion, and now the threshold of entering this world is higher. I believe that I would try to create enough opportunities to everyone who is passionate for the sports. Sometimes the government will make investment, and sometimes the business circles will also make investment. And also, you also need to invest some time to support, encourage people to participate. Also, in the north area, we have already constructed some outdoor ice rink so that people can participate in ice sports. My last question. At the first annual session of the 13th National Committee of CPPCC, you are also a CPPCC member. And during this period of time, how would you arrange? I have a dream for the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. I hope during that game that on the basis of recognition from the world to our organizing ability, our organization of this game can really impress and touch each participant from the world, from abroad. And during the preparation, a lot of events happened. However, people mostly will only focus on the medalists and how many medals we have won. That is actually a shame, because a lot of events happened apart from the medal winning events. From my perspective, the establishment of Athletes Commission is mainly focused on how to impress each athlete and how to cater for those athletes. At that time, when the athletes around the world gathered here, how can we make them as our spokesperson? We must impress them. Whose spokesperson? Beijing Winter Olympic Games spokesperson. Because when they come to Beijing, they need to realize that the whole journey it's very memorable, and we really need to impress them during each details. I realized that you used a word touching and impress. Is it a very high standard or low standard? I think that's a really high standard. I think scale or the total grand feeling of the games is not the most important thing. How to impress everyone, it's really important because you have to really look out for them and also look out for the details. How to impress athletes? What is the main elements? I think as our organizing work undergoing, the organizing work of each event, because everyone is very confident to our organizing of sports events. However, what we really need to pay attention to are those details. We need to let the audience and also everyone get impressed, because yesterday I talked about the admission ticket. One of the family member of an athlete wanted to get into the stadium and try to watch his or her family members' game. However, he couldn't get the ticket, and that's a shame. In this case, can we guarantee that as long as the athlete is participating, then the athlete's family member is guaranteed to have a ticket? For this kind of gesture can really impress the athlete, and also really take care of the family members' feeling. This is just one aspect. I'll give you another example. When an athlete wins a match, who will the athlete want to talk to first? Because currently the athlete will face with the media or the press. However, I sincerely believe that the athlete would like to talk to his or her family members first. I'll give another example. I've noticed that recent years, including in the Rio Winter Olympic Games, and also in Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games, we see some mother athletes, and she even won 2 gold medals. And she mentioned to me that she would like to have a babysitter during the Winter Games, because when she was participating in the game, she would really think about her baby, whether her baby is being taken care of, and whether she could go to her baby after the game. I really understand that feeling, because me myself is also a mother, and I participated in several international games when I was pregnant, and also when I had my baby. I really understand that kind of need and demand. However, I don't know how to operate that and whether that is legalized or not. However, this kind of details is the details that we need to pay attention to. Thank you so much. You mentioned several details and also several plans. You also mentioned that some of the athletes have a common feature, that is that the more challenging, the more passionate the athlete gets. I sincerely wish that although the mission of you is very challenging, I hope that you can go very smoothly forward.
么这么说？我怕领导，因为这些话私底下聊天还行。